You're listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. I'm Mel Tiller, your host. I'm thrilled to be with you today. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a very important guest. Her name is Congresswoman Susie Lee. She represents District 3. We're thrilled to have her with us. Susie, Congresswoman Susie Lee, welcome to the show.
Great to see you, Mel. Thanks for having me. Always nice to be with you and chat about what's going on here in Southern Nevada and also what's happening back in Washington, D.C.
Yes, can't wait to get started. So let's talk about all of the things that are going on. This is a very interesting time to be alive because there are so many things going on. I'd like to start out by talking about our homeless population. What are you all doing, and are you all as concerned about the homeless as many of us are?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, as you may recall, my career in Southern Nevada began running the city's first comprehensive homeless drop-in center. So this has been an issue, obviously, that we have been struggling with for quite a long time. But as you know, affordable housing has been a major issue here in Southern Nevada.
Yes.
And we are seeing more and more people not be able to afford rent, being forced out on the streets. And so, what we have done in Washington to help address this, first of all, our state has a shortage of 84,000 affordable rental units. And in Southern Nevada, we know that more than 6,500 people experience homelessness each night. But we've been able to pass through the Inflation Reduction Act, key tax incentives to help developers of affordable housing units, because ultimately homelessness results when people can't afford a place to live. And so what we need to be doing with incredible urgency is investing in affordable housing. So I'm proud that we worked with the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco to increase federal housing funding here in Nevada. Also led legislation that will lower housing costs. The Division of Housing reports that in 2022, there were 3,800 subsidized multi-family units that are now in the pipeline. And that's the result of these low-income housing tax credits that we've been able to get and expand upon here in Southern Nevada. I helped lead the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. This expands the low-income tax credits by 50% to increase the number of affordable housing units. Now, what these tax credits do is you have developers who invest in building out these multifamily units. And we just had an opening of one on Lake Mead. There's been several openings of senior units as well. And they use these tax credits to build out these units so they can keep their prices lower for renters. And so we now know that because of the efforts that we've made, that we now have 3,800 more units in the pipeline. That was in 2022. Again, we still have a heck of a lot of work to do to get more units on the market here quickly. I've convened several housing forums with experts, breaking down some barriers, making sure that we're getting the permitting through as quickly as possible so these units can get built, identifying areas that are great locations where people don't have access to public transportation. And then, of course, the most important thing, especially with respect to our seniors, is making sure they have access to wraparound services as well. So that they're able, once you have a roof over your head, that's great, but you need food. You need to make sure that if you come on hard times, you have those community resources as well.
This is exciting news. when can we expect to actually see a result of all the work that you've done?
Well, listen, these units, the units under construction, that's 3,800 out of 28,000. And so, those are under construction. We expect those to be completed in the next year or two, but then we need to get more under construction. We still have more that we need to do, but this is an ongoing process. We need to continue to work with our county and our local stakeholders as well as state to break down some of those barriers so we can get these units built as quickly and safely as possible in the right communities and get people into those units.
Okay. I'd like to shift now and talk about Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade is a major subject around the country. The freedom of women to choose what happens to their own bodies has been taken away from them. That decision has now been made by the Supreme Court, and we are hearing horrible, horrid stories around the country. Things are happening when women don't have choice. How do you feel about that, and what's going on in Washington concerning reproductive rights?
Well, listen, I, like the vast majority of women in this country, am completely incensed and irate about the basic fact that women before me had more freedoms than women now, that my daughter and our daughters and granddaughters will have less freedom than we as women have had. And by the way, there are 23 million women who live in the US in a state that restricts abortion. And
that's
what
right.
This is,
right.
And we need to remember, abortion care is fundamental health care. Yes. And it particularly falls on lower income women, women of color, who end up not having those choices to travel out of state, to take an airline to another state, to find other abortion care in other states. It's heartbreaking to see the story of the woman Kate Cox in Texas. Now, yes. This is a woman who is this is her third child. This is she has an abnormality in her child's DNA that either is going to affect her health, obviously the health of the child, but more importantly, her ability to conceive in the future. The Texas Supreme Court, these are not healthcare providers, these are judges, made a decision that she could not have an abortion. She has since then traveled out of state because she had the ability to do so. So what we know is MAGA Republicans want to restrict abortion access nationwide. And so that 23 million figure will increase to every woman in this country not having access to abortion care. I want to just make one other point as well. We have a doctor shortage here in Southern Nevada. Many people struggle to get in and see doctors. OBGYN is an area where we have an incredible shortage. And people aren't entering the OBGYN profession because MAGA Republicans are taking off of their menu one item of care that in some cases is life-saving and is an option for women. And they're basically saying, we don't trust you as doctors, but we're going to leave this to a politician who knows nothing about the woman's health history, knows nothing about what's going on. They're going to make that decision. And so what you're seeing is not only do we have the current shortage of caregivers, we are seeing fewer and fewer people choose to go into this field of practice, which is incredibly dangerous. And we know that the burden in this deficit falls again on lower income minority women who end up having less and less access to essential health care. So what I say to everyone is that women's freedom is on the ballot. And make no mistake about it, even in a state like Nevada, where it is protected statewide, the problem is if there's a nationwide abortion ban, that will quote unquote trump our access to abortion. And so don't think that because you live in a state like Nevada that you're safe. Federal elections matter. And that's why 2024 is so critical to every woman in this country.
Listen, I want to make sure that people understand something about this. Kate, if you haven't heard the story, Kate was a white woman. Kate is a woman with means.
Yes.
She had the ability to go out of state and get the medical care that she needs. What happens, what is happening right now is that these decisions are being made, and individuals who do not have the ability, don't have the money, don't have the resources to leave their states, their lives are at risk and the lives of the children are at risk because people are making medical decisions who do not have medical degrees and have not examined, have not seen, know nothing about the medical situation, but they are making the final call. This is deplorable. And that takes us right into the next topic that I want to talk about, which is voting rights. We need to talk about voting rights and how people can fight against these egregious rulings and these egregious decisions that are being made. What about voting rights?
Well, listen, as we always say, every election is the most important election of our lifetime.
Yes.
And after what we saw with January 6th, after what you saw even in our state, a big shout out to Attorney General Aaron Ford for indicting these fake electors who basically a theory of trying to pretty much just say the vote didn't happen or the results of the vote were not right and we're going to create our own reality. I mean, that is how scary it is. And first and foremost, you got to register to vote. You got to show up to vote and not be intimidated by any type of effort to show up and vote. And I have to say, I was very disappointed that Governor Lombardo vetoed a bill that passed our House legislature that prohibited people from being able to carry a firearm into election polling places. And again, that's a form of intimidation.
Yes,
and so, we need to make sure that we show up to vote. And then, of course, thank God we have incredible public service servants like AG Aaron Ford, who are going the full length to make sure that those people who tried to erase the results of the election are held accountable.
Okay, let's talk about what is being done, what's being done in Washington to preserve our right to vote.
Well, listen, I mean, we have, first of all, you got to understand in the House of Representatives, we are under Republican majority. We do have the voting right. We have many bills to expand and protect voting rights that will never see the light of day on the House floor. A lot of these battles are being fought in our courts, making sure that one, pay attention to who you elect as your Supreme Court justices, especially in our state, because that's where a lot of these rulings happen in rolling back access to voting rights. So we'll continue. First and foremost, Democrats need to regain the majority in the House in 2024 so we can push through legislation that expands access to voting rather than restricts it. and then make sure we pay attention to who sits on our judicial seats, especially in states like ours where they're elected, and make sure that they are preserving access, making sure that everyone has the right to vote. And, some of these, decisions are hours that voting places are opened up. Obviously, intense gerrymandering where seats are created that make it all nearly impossible for one party or the other to win an election. And so, again, we as Americans need to understand that our most important way to combat this is to get out and vote ourselves.
We recently had another mass shooting at UNLV. Guns, guns, guns. What's happening in DC about gun violence?
Well, listen, I will say under the leadership of President Joe Biden, in an environment where no one would have predicted that we would pass bipartisan gun legislation, we were able to do that by passing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This had, red flag. This provided additional resources for mental health services in our communities. And so, progress can be made when you have the right people in the right place. There have been 630 mass shootings in 2023 in the United States of America. And, whether you're talking about the largest mass shooting in American history or what happened at UNLV, which has traumatized, people often, obviously, the three professors who were incredible members of our community, incredible professors at UNLV, had a legacy of, UNLV is such a beacon of hope.
Yes.
In our community. It is one of the most diverse universities in the country. And I just had a meeting, in fact, this morning with UNLV professors who said, the trauma is still there.
Oh, yes.
They are dealing with the aftermath of the trauma, but more importantly, the school's now on complete online learning. So we're going back to, the experience that these students had during COVID. It's basically pulled the rug out from under the community at UNLV. And at the very same time that shooting happened, Republicans in the Senate blocked two pieces of gun safety legislation from coming to the floor. One on safe storage and assault weapons bans. So, we got a lot of work to do to make sure that the vast majority of Americans believe that weapons of war do not have a place on our streets. We know that. We know that there are common sense. We have filed 4 discharge petitions in the House of Representatives, expanding background checks, closing the Charleston loophole, safe storage, assault weapons bans. These are vastly supported by the American public, and Republicans could bring them to the floor right now and we could pass them. And instead they choose to cower to the gun lobby. And, listen, we all have children. I have a son in college. I fear every day of getting that text or that tweet that so many parents received just 2 weeks ago at UNLV. And that is not normal. We should not accept this as a country, and we should demand that people that we elect take the steps to make our community safer.
Talk to me about your leadership style and your approach to getting things done in Washington.
Yeah, listen, as I told you, we are in a Republican majority in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And I believe that We are only better as a country when we work together. And I don't want to live in a country where we have to have the presidency, the Senate, and the House all one party to get something done. And then when the tide shifts and it turns the other way to the other party, they spend the next 4 years erasing everything that was done. I believe that bipartisan solutions produce durable legislation and durable answers to our country's problems. And that's why I'm proud to have been ranked the #1 most bipartisan member of Congress by Common Ground. I scored higher than any U.S. representative or senator or governor. I just passed 2 bipartisan bills, the Treat Youth Act, which reauthorizes an important youth substance abuse program, and the Health Insurance Price Transparency Act, which basically requires health insurance rates and charges, expands that transparency where insurance providers have to publish what they are charging for services. I've introduced 34 bills in this Congress. Over 70% of them have been bipartisan. I'm the co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is half Democrats, half Republicans. I'm the vice chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, and I'm the vice chair of the Bipartisan Colorado River Caucus, because we know that drought is such an important issue. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. If you live in the Southwest in the United States, we have to answer this problem with a bipartisan solution. So, you don't see me on national TV a lot. I'm one of those people that tends to try to work behind the scenes, roll up my sleeves, and get things done. We just announced a $3 billion Brightline West high-speed rail project that will connect Southern California to Las Vegas. That came because of the bipartisan infrastructure package. That package was dead in the water until a group of bipartisan members of the House and the Senate and governors sat down in a room in Annapolis, Maryland, and resurrected that legislation. That's the type of leadership that I provide. Just, you gotta find areas of compromise. Everyone's not going to be happy, 100% happy, but look at the type of things we can get done when we work together, and the number of jobs that we can produce for Southern Nevada, and improve our lives and make our commutes easier, obviously add to our economic security here in Nevada. So a lot of things were done because we were able to work across the aisle.
You're running again. How's your campaign going?
Listen, my campaign is, when you're in a seat like mine, which I'm always on the top of the Republican Congressional Committee's list of top targets in the country. And so it's always a tough race. But, I spend my time making sure that I'm delivering for my constituents, because that's what this job is all about. I closed over 1,500 cases of people who have called my office asking for help. We've saved them over $3 million, or gotten money return benefits that they couldn't get, or that they, were mistakenly not given to them. We got them. We helped them get tax refunds that they couldn't track down. People who are veterans, you're a veteran yourself. Thank you for your service. But, veterans who have had trouble accessing benefits, things like that. That's how I campaign. I campaign by continuing day in and day out. And I have an incredible staff here in Southern Nevada and in Washington, who our #1 focus is delivering for my constituents. And that's really, to me, what the campaign's all about, making sure that I have the honor and the privilege to continue to fight for Southern Nevadans.
For those who would like to contact you, contact your office, help your campaign, or need help, how do they contact you?
Listen, you can go to SusieLeeForNevada.com on my campaign. If you want to help out with the campaign, if you need help officially, just call my office, 702-963-9336.
Okay, give us that phone number once more, please.
702-963-9336.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I would like to leave you with the last word.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you for the work that you do and 100 Black men do in our community. And whenever I'm in the community, I say democracy is a team sport. And we need people who are philanthropic, who invest in our community like 100 Black men, who advocate to make sure that our communities get the resources we need. We have advocates far and wide, whether you're talking about public lands or water or voting rights or LGBTQ plus rights or, abortion rights, civil rights. We need everyone on board. But most importantly, we need people to show up and vote, because that is your participation in democracy. And as I say, I've been saying it every election, the most important election of our lifetime is the one coming up. And I hope that everyone gets out and exercises their right to vote.
You heard it here, Congresswoman Susie Lee. Congresswoman Lee, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, thanks. Always great to see you. Have a happy holiday and Happy New Year.
You've been listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. And until next time, my name is Mel Tiller. You keep it 100.